Derivatives trading involves substantial risk of loss and is not suitable for all investors. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results.
So stressful when the world's on fire. Good God. I can't look at this, guys. Like, my strategy is you buy it and you hope that you got a good spot. Yeah, but we all think you're crazy. You don't fight this. No way. The markets are freaking out and you don't think that anything is wrong? Come back tomorrow and I'll lose it all. Should be fun.
All right, guys, it is Federal Reserve meeting week. It's Monday. If you had a good weekend, I feel pretty rested. Let's come in and look at the charts, huh? Well, again, we had a pretty big downturn in the treasuries again on Friday, and we're just kind of middling down the side now. Now, the S&P 500 also did not like that, but well, and by the way, this is one of the first times where like there wasn't really a whole lot of a meaningful recovery afterwards. I do think that was important, but in the overnight, we're getting pretty strong momentum again. Tech names are pushing and they're recovering. So there's a pretty big conference for NVIDIA today. So we'll see we get that out of the way, and then we might see the action shift after that. Oil's still up there above $80. So, you know, it could be one of those things where you get a temporary breakout and then it flips back down on you. But we are higher, and that is a pretty big deal. If this continues and/or we start moving towards 85.90, that could cause a lot of problems for the market. You know? Gold and silver still just kind of in their mean reversion after a pretty good month in March. Silver. Copper. There's copper. Copper's doing really, really well. And the Japanese yen. So we're getting decisions from the Bank of Japan this week as well. So I think we should expect some volatility over there. Yeah, the dollar's still unable to recover 103 though. And then you got Bitcoin. A little bit of carnage over the weekend, but nothing too crazy, and they're sitting just below 70,000. You know, this may just be the beginning of a run. When these sorts of things go, it does it all year. I have to say, this ride in Bitcoin feels a little different from the ones before. So I don't know what that spells for the future of it, but for now we're going sideways. All right, yeah. When you come over and you see like the 5-minute chart here in the S&P 500, like that's a rally. That's a pretty strong rally, right? So, Rob, good morning. How are you? Probably going to be a little lighter here this morning. Those are new Discord features. Oh, cool. I can come in and like select which channels I want to view and stuff like that. Cool. All right. So, well, good morning, A-Paul. See, you guys are all here. You're just going to filter in a little bit more slowly. It's Monday. I understand. Long weekend. I got a lot done this weekend. Maybe not the things that I wanted to get done, but I got a lot done. Oh, you know what we need to do? $24 03 18. Strong rally in equities overnight. So some of the forces that we got to be aware of right now. NVIDIA event. Federal Reserve, or let's just say FOMC week. FOMC week. I don't think we really got anything. Oh, we do have 3-month bill auction. And is that it? Oh, okay. Bank of Japan decision tonight. That should be a little low. And I don't have anything from like the week. Yeah, new shell. I've been using new shell for my shell over here. Actually, I should do the big one. Should do the big one. There we go. A little bigger for you. So I already forgot some of my tools. I have a tool to say what the date is today, but I'm just going to put in here Monday 2024 03 18. Oh, do you not know what new shell is? It's just a command line shell. Like, so if you download terminal from the Windows store, and then you can get these different terminals. So by default, you'll have the Windows PowerShell and command prompt. This one right here is SSH to my server. These are Visual Studio. But then you can install these, like I've installed Windows Subsystem for Linux, so I got Ubuntu and Arch on there. I should probably get rid of Ubuntu. I don't want Ubuntu on there anymore. Helix is the editor that I'm using. So the editor that I'm using has its own shell if you want. And then new shell is just a shell replacement. So there's like, in Linux, you can like change your shell. There's like, everybody uses bash, but then there's like Z shell and fish, and there's all these. And new shell is one of them, is a newer one. And it's okay. It's okay. But the big thing about new shell is that it works on Windows, and I like the experience that I get with it from Windows better than PowerShell. So I've been using new shell. But I don't want to go over to my Arch installations. I want to keep it over in the Windows. So that's why I'm using that. But the real application is new shell. And we're just using new shell here to write our notes. So my big thing this month, let's say, is overly meticulous note taking. So I've been doing that at work. Actually, that worked really, really well for work on Friday. So I'm kind of liking this. And one of the ideas with this kind of note taking is like, you just kind of put your thoughts out and the things that you want to perhaps remember in the notes. And then later you can go back and you can like reformat and adjust the notes to make them appropriate for like a wide audience. And then you can kind of take those things and turn them into articles or books or things like that. So, but really, the thing that we're really using here is Helix, which is the text editor that I'm using here. So I wonder what looks better here, or stars. Yeah, I think we'll do this. There we go. Okay. Write that out. Actually, I want to come over here. I'll start another one. Open notes, stream logs, 2024-03-15. Okay, yeah, I think we got things pretty close. Twitter has been littered with rumors that King Charles has passed. Really? Okay, well, I haven't really come through here on Twitter yet, so let's start doing our combing of social media to see what we got going on. Biden administration to finalize major gas car crackdown over warnings from automakers and energy industry. You know what I find kind of weird is how there's been so much focus over the last 2 weeks, I would say, with the auto industry and the EV industry. Because it seems to me like, once again, the left has implemented some sort of perverse market incentive to try and push the market in a certain direction, and it's blowing up in their face. Like, consumers can't afford the EV vehicles. Not everybody wants them. And I mean, it has done a lot to improve EV adoption, but I don't think it's quite going the way that they want. And then, oh my gosh, and then over the weekend, Donald Trump was like, well, if something doesn't happen, there will be a bloodbath in the EV industry. And then the media went and took that and went all bonkers over him saying there's going to be a bloodbath if he's not elected, completely leaving out that the context was a bloodbath in the car industry. And it's just become like a complete hoax. A complete hoax, and the media's been going crazy with it. But they are still talking about vehicles, and Biden is going to be doing another more rules to filter out more gas vehicles. It's a little crazy, and I don't think that helps him, because then it just puts more focus on the things that the government is doing to mess with the free market that kind of aren't working, you know? The Hertz CEO is selling down due to EVs? Selling? What do you mean by selling down? Yeah, I saw that too. Well, I would hope that you saw it, man. It was freaking everywhere. EVs aren't sustainable. The idea is to get people to stop driving in general and funnel them into limited capacity government transport. Maybe. You know what? That one kind of sounds like a conspiracy theory, but I don't think I can argue against that one. I do feel this kind of pressure coming from sources, government and World Economic Forum and otherwise, that basically they don't want me to travel, right? It's definitely a thing. Is the ultimate plan to just have your transport limited in general? It could be. Because you know what? The left does not like the car-centered society that we have in the United States. You know? If you really talk to far left people, and you get in on that's one of those like niche subjects that they'll know all of this stuff about, and you just be like, okay, right? 15-minute cities, yeah, there's a reason where this comes. Well, 15-minute cities is kind of a little bit of a different thing, okay? But because that's it going like way too far beyond what I'm just talking about. Okay, but there is this kind of thing in the left that's like, because we have cars, we got all of this urban sprawl, and then that affects the way that they plan cities and so forth, and it causes all of these problems. And so their solution is essentially people shouldn't be able to travel as much. Yes. We low-key developed them everywhere in Florida, apartments stacked on top of retail plazas. Well, yeah, because they think... Well, I'd actually even probably argue that there's some good evidence to suggest that kind of a community setup actually is better. Like, people are happier with it and so forth, apparently. But I also think that part of it is, like, they want everywhere to be like New York, essentially, right? Over here in Utah, we get these communities where, like, you have like the small community, but it's kind of laid out around a park, so everybody is really, really close to the park, and the kids in the neighborhood just play in the park, and that I think is a better setup for like a suburban world, but that actually encourages community. Yeah, if you're a milky pansy ass redditor who thinks equity is an evil capitalist concept, though, I want to rail against redditors here with you, but I don't. Nothing comes to mind. I like my land and my sea. Oh, right. Well, I don't know if it necessarily has to do with they don't think that you should have as much land. I mean, they believe that too. But I think that's separate from that. Yeah, and renting everything. So, like, I'm trying to, like, trace the etymology of these ideas, right? And I think that there's a couple of different ideas that kind of mash together, but that are actually separate sorts of things, right? So some people on the left believe in overpopulation problems. So should we call it that? That's why the large portion of the left is like this death cult. They think that there's too many people, which, you know, if you live out in the country, I think you realize pretty quick there's a lot of room, and that overpopulation is not really a problem. But the left seems to think that it's really a problem. And so they want to reduce the amount of land that you live on, and not have as many kids, and all of these other things, right? That's like a different belief. And I don't even know, and I don't even know if that's related to that they think that people are too stupid to govern themselves. No, that's just, they believe that the world is overpopulated. Okay. But I think that that's different from their ideas about how to create effective and sustainable communities is a different thing. And for some reason, they think, well, and what? No, there's absolutely no evidence of overpopulation. Okay, but they think that a community works better if it's like a New York borough, is basically what it comes down to, and so they want like everywhere to be like that. When doesn't. Yeah, I mean, there's different ways of doing things, and we probably don't have enough evidence to say, oh, this is like the perfect way, everybody should do it this way. Oh, yeah. This is funny. Oh, man, you're on one. You'll see, but every message that you're sending here, Uzi, you're bringing up a separate issue, right? Focus with me here. Let's dissect one issue first before we bring up every little thing that the left believes. That's... Yep. Things seem overpopulated when I bet you they have few life experiences and have never been anywhere but their one statistically crappy city, I bet. That's the thing. So I saw this video this morning. I really liked it. And it was this woman. She looked like she was a fairly traditional woman. Like she wasn't, I don't think that she was like one of these crazy trad wife types, but she was promoting like off-grid living. And she went through basically what they were doing to live off-grid. And they built their own house on like 2 acres or something like that. And they only spent $20,000 for their entire lifestyle. And so it costs them $200 a month to pay for, I guess, the land and all of that. 200, can you believe that? Was like the house, it was $200 a month. Can you imagine spending that is orders of magnitude less than I spend on my house. And my immediate thought was, oh, well, wow. Yes, everybody complains about, the cost of living crisis and things like that. But a major factor behind the cost of living crisis is that millennials all want to live in the same place. They all want to live in the center of the big cities. And I don't know why, but I don't really feel like that makes sense. And here you're kind of seeing, if you don't go into the overpopulated cities, you can live on less. And this idea that like we have to do things because like everybody should, like having a home should be a right and things like that. Well, no, it requires labor. And then they say, well, yeah, but there's nowhere else for you to live. Well, yes, there is, because you can go out and live in the country, and people do it and subsist on their own labor, essentially. And they're perfectly happy, too, by the way. It was an interesting video, I thought. What did she make the house out of? Mud? Well, I kind of wondered the same thing, because I bet you that they built it before COVID. That's my guess. My guess is that they built it before COVID, because that would be a lot. It was a pretty nice looking house. I mean, it was a small house, but it looked nice to me. Good morning, I'm Ashish. Hearing about that is pleasing. I do enjoy positives on some of those kinds of things because I agree. Location. But let's see. We got to come back to the thing, which is that the left, they are concerned about climate change and they think that electric vehicles is the way. And it's kind of dumb, because if everybody was on electric vehicles, it wouldn't work. The electric grid can't handle it. The supply chains can't handle it. We don't have the resource mining for these rare earth minerals to be able to deal with it. We are relying on basically slave labor to mine the cobalt and other such minerals to create these vehicles. It's very dumb. It says Paul. Yes, it's very dumb. And everybody in the audio industry is coming here and being like, look, this is electric vehicles has been a dud, guys. And, guys like Toyota and stuff are moving back towards hybrid, which makes sense, because as everything from what I've seen, hybrid is better right now. Like, you save the planet more by doing a hybrid than you do a full electric vehicle. Hybrid is the perfect, well, I'm not going to say it's the perfect compromise, but who knows what future technologies are in store. I saw a study last week that suggested that there is more harmful pollution in the air from the particles that are formed from the car tires than there is from the actual exhaust. and that apparently some of the electric vehicles, because of the types of rubber that they were using, were worse. Remember the glass battery? No, I do not remember that. I think that there are a lot of technologies that you see come about that look really wondrous, but actually end up not being very cost effective. So that's why a lot of the time you'll see this miraculous technology that the company is pushing out, but then once they start to push it, they realize it's not economical. Total BS. Oh, the one about the tires? I tell you what, man, rubber is not good for you. Like it there was this whole thing where, you know, they used to build parks and jungle gyms and stuff out of tires, or like they would use old tires for like the ground, and then you know, the kids got sick from it and sued and won. It is very toxic. And it is a little wild to realize that particulates that come from just the cars driving around on the tires are probably more hazardous to our health, at least. I'm not talking about climate change, but more hazardous to our health than the actual car emissions is. I believe it, but it's pretty startling to think about, isn't it? It's shocking how many people just burn tires. Oh, right. Yeah, it's toxic stuff, man. Toxic. But don't you think it's a little weird that, like, it must be because everybody knew that this Biden order was kind of coming down the line, and because the car industry is not doing so hot right now. Like, the prices for everything is coming down pretty quickly in cars because it was like crazy during COVID. Like, the average car payment is $700 a month or something like that, which to me is like, what? You get a pretty amazing car for $700 a month. Yours is, you own a Mustang and it's $432. See, that's because I think that I will have to buy a car before the end of the summer, I think. Because I think what's going to happen is my son is going to take over my Acura and I'm going to have to buy a new car. And I was kind of thinking, all right, well, I mean, I could probably afford whatever I wanted if I really wanted it, but that would be kind of silly and stupid. So what would actually be like a reasonable amount to spend? And so I had kind of was starting to settle on $500 a month just because it was like a round number. That's $25,900 financed in 2009, same car model. Oh, it's an older car. Yeah, okay. And probably financed for like 2 or 3 years instead of 5. Yeah. Oh, this new one is a 24. Still for because I think that when you get into like, so I think if it's $1,000 a month, you're talking like an $80,000-$90,000 car, right? I don't know how the math works out, but I'm just saying it's crazy how expensive cars were during the pandemic, right? And the prices of all of those are coming down. And then at the same time, there is a crash in demand for electric vehicles, and the Chinese companies are like beating the pants off of the U.S. companies and this sort of thing. So for Biden to try out this, like, okay, we're going to have even more strict standards for gas vehicles now, it's like, oof. Get Alexis. Well, that's kind of the direction I was leaning. Although I may just go for an Integra. So my car right now is a TL. So an Integra is a slightly smaller car, but it's a sportier car. And I could get like a 4-wheel drive Integra. But I may go down the path of getting a Tacoma or a RAV4. Why not an MDX? No, but I kind of feel that if I was going to go down the route of like a crossover, that I would go back to the Lexuses then at that point. I forget what they call the Lexus ones, but 2022 or newer, the new ones, the engine shuts off at every light. The RX. Huh. I don't know about a 4Runner. I don't want a car that's high. Like RAV4 is a little lower to the ground. The emissions standards have auto shut off. Huh. Like, and how long is the shut off for? Like, it will auto shut off if you're sitting at a light? I remember having a car, though. Where was it? When was this? I do recall a car with an auto shut off, and I think it was a really long time ago, too. Maybe it was when I was a missionary. I don't know. But I do remember a car having like, or maybe it was I rented a car. And it did have an auto shut off, but like I didn't even really notice. Like it didn't take very long for it to start going again, and so it wasn't a problem. For any amount of real car audio due to power requirements, auto shut off and car audio do not get along. So it's an aggravation in the car audio community of them constantly trying to bypass it on all of the vehicles, really. So I have to get something that's before 2022 to avoid that, huh? Because the thing was, is I was thinking, I bet you my car will last like another 2 years and I won't need to do anything. And so then I could go and get a new, basically I should be looking at 2024 vehicles and yada, yada, yada. Now you're saying, no, don't do that. Go for 2022. Yeah, I'll have to see. The big thing is that I want a car that's better in the snow and that I can drive up the canyon. So I think that it has to have 4-wheel drive. It doesn't necessarily have to be like a 4Runner or a truck or anything. I just got to be able to get 4-wheel drive and put snow tires on it. Morgan says a Subaru. I've considered a Subaru. I don't know. None of the Subarus really speak to me. Maybe if they had a better WRX right now. But I'm also like, so here's one of my issues. Like, so I find it really interesting, this whole thing with what do we call them? Land Rovers or whatever? Range Rovers, that like this is an extremely nice, extremely expensive car, and it's extremely popular, but it also has extremely poor reliability. You have to take it in a lot, and the people that buy that car are okay with doing that because that has a really good car warranty, and so they're just taking it into the shop and they're okay with that. And then when it's out of car warranty, they just switch it out, which it's crazy to me to be getting a new $100,000 car every 5 years, but apparently there's a lot of rich people out there that do it, right? That way of living would never be for me. Why? Because I forget stuff. You know, I will see something in the house and it's like, oh, we need to fix that, right? And then after it's sat and it's festered for like a month or two and it's become a big enough problem that you just can't ignore it anymore. And then I finally, I buckle down the hatches and like go and do something about it. But I forget things and I hate to have to go and take something in, etc., etc., etc. So I think you must be talking about BMW people. Well, it is the same with the German cars. Well, it's not the same, but it's similar with the German cars that you have to take it. It's a very reliable car if you do all of the maintenance, right? And that's the whole thing is I'm really bad at that stuff. That's why I think that a or a Toyota is more appropriate for me, because you rarely will have to do anything for it. Because, you know, taking time out just to get the emissions done is a huge pain point for me. Right? Like I almost always end up going a month too far. I should go and check when let's see here. So where's my new shell here? Okay. I have two of these now. Do the thing. Check. Emission state on car. Let's hear. What are you saying? With a BMW and a Mercedes, if you drive either, it's the law that you A, generally suck at driving, B, can't handle performance vehicles, C, wear gold chains, and D, bathe in stinky cologne. Oh, really? I know. I see a lot of classy... You know, I don't see very many BMWs these days for some reason. Kind of sounds to me like the BMW brand has been tarnished in some way or something. But I see a few classy looking Mercedes-Benz every once in a while. BMWs don't come installed with turn signals? No, what? I don't believe you. And then there's the other one is the Audis. Oh, because nobody uses them. Oh, I get it. I get the joke. Okay, yes. I don't see a lot of BMWs anymore. So I saw them more in the 2010s. Yeah, it was like the tail end of the 2010s, BMW kind of went south. Anyways, I see a decent amount of Audis. And Audis can be a nice car. They're not as nice as the Mercedes-Benz, though, right? Am I correct? My understanding with the Audis is that the Audis kind of turned it a little bit into lemons in the recent past. And so what's happening, though, is all of the car dealerships are basically offering pretty good extended warranty packages with them. And like giving you good deals on them because they just got to get rid of them. So like my understanding is you can actually get pretty good deals on Audis right now, as long as you're willing to put up with, you know, having to take it in for repairs. I always hear people talk on Mustangs, and I carried one for 14 years with zero problems. Took an accident to kill it. What? So here's something that I have kind of, it's a passing like. This thought, I expel it almost immediately when it comes, but it keeps coming up. And we've talked about it again. That new hatchback version of the Mustang, what is it? The Mach-E or something like that, right? as far as I understand, not a terrible car. It's just that people don't like the style. I wouldn't say it's the best looking thing. I was like a good try, but it's not terrible. So I'm kind of like, oh, could I get a good deal on one of those? Maybe, but then I'm immediately like, yeah, but I would probably rather have an Integra. Yeah, the Mustang Mach-E is pretty good. The part they screwed up was trying to sell it off the Mustang's name when people didn't want that at all. Yeah, that might, you might have a good point. Oh, Jeep Grand. I would never get a Jeep Grand Cherokee. The reliability is terrible. They have terrible crash ratings. The company that's running them is just the absolute worst right now. People's cars can be found on the road dead because they leave their general maintenance. Jesus. I worked at a Ford dealership for a while, and literally everyone there, even those who hated EVs, agree that the part that ruined it was calling it a Mustang. Yeah. See, it doesn't seem like a terrible car to me. But I just don't know if it competes with the other things that I want. Right? Because like my cars are like an Integra, or what was it? Is it the RX? Hold on. Let's go to Lexus. Which Lexus is it that we're supposed to get? I think it is the RX, yeah. Oh, the RX is the bigger one. RX. I've also considered, you know what I think is kind of an interesting car, but it's too new for me to get, is the Toyota Crown. So the Toyota Crown is actually a crossover. It's a crossover designed to look like a sedan. And so when you see it in person, it's like an enormous sedan. I mean, like, it is a sedan, but it's huge. And but I kind of like this new look with the Toyota, with the kind of like the line along the front that kind of makes it look like it's got a really furrowed brow. I kind of like it. Because there's this other car they've got. What's the new one? It's got a really freaking weird name. It's like not even a real electrified. I think it's electrified. Yes, it's a BZ4X. Yeah, these are really cool in person. Like, it just it's got a unique look. Kind of like that. But anyways, the Crown has that same kind of look. But this is a luxury vehicle. I think my thinking is like, well, I should have a car that, like, I go and I pick up the kid, because most of what we use my car for is my wife drives it to the airport when she works, which is maybe once a week, and we'll take that if I go and I pick kids up. So I would want a car that, like, really comfortable and their friends enjoy sitting in it. And then something that I could take to the ski resort. So I have to have 4-wheel drive. Anyways. Now, actually, so if I'm going to get a Toyota, it's probably going to be the Tacoma. Tacoma. Right. I'm a yuppie. Is that what it is? Yeah, I think so. Aren't I too old to be called young upcoming, though? I'm almost 40. Is that... a Tacoma, like 60, 70... Well, yeah, if you buy a new one. Dude, this new... let me show you. I think you have to scroll, like, all the way down to the bottom. Okay, this thing right here, the Trail Hunter, these are cool. Trail Hunters are cool. It's a Tacoma that's already outfitted to be an Outlander vehicle. And they look cool. They got like special seats that rock back and forth and stuff. They're cool. They're cool. And it's got the little thing in the back. Yeah. Maybe if, you know, I could wait 2 years, so maybe I would get this one, but. And then over here, an Acura Integra. Those are probably the leading contenders. Let's see here. You know those old commercials, my truck's so good till it lasts forever? Well, I don't know about you, but I still see many of those. Yeah, I do, yeah. Old Chevys? Oh, well, yeah. Well, it's interesting you say that. Because it kind of shifted, right? Like in the 90s and early 2000s, I would say the Chevys probably were better. And then somewhere in the late 2000s, early 2010s, the F-150 took over. So if you're looking at old trucks, like classic trucks out there that are like from the 90s and before, probably more likely for it to be a Chevy. You're right. Man, if you go, so there's this store here called, well, I don't know if it's here. There's a relatively new store here in Davis County, Utah, but maybe they're elsewhere. But it's called Cal Ranch, and it's basically a store for country people, essentially. Like I can go there and I can buy bales of hay, but. It kind of seems to me like it's not like for people that are like subsistence farming or anything like that, right? Like it's people that are fairly well to do and just own a lot of, you know, land and farming is their hobby, right? So for some things I'll go to the Cal Ranch store. They have like quality tools. They have quality all of these sorts of things. And when you go to the parking lot of that place, that's when it kind of hits you that like, this is for people that they're doing farming as a hobby, because the trucks that you will see in that parking lot are so insane. Yes, like $60,000-$70,000 trucks and up. Pretty crazy trucks in that parking lot. And some of them really, really old trucks that have just been extremely well taken care of. Oh, cars. We love to talk about cars, don't we? But the whole reason we're talking about that is because Joe Biden wants to improve, make the emission standards even tougher. I don't know about nice and shiny. So this is what I don't understand is, like, they will definitely not be shiny looking, but they won't have corrosion on them. For a car that old, for a truck that old, I would expect there to be like corrosion and stuff on them by this point, but no. This is the new game that I play is when I go out. Now that I've been looking at cars and I have a little bit more awareness, because when I was a kid, right, like a nice car was like a supercar. Well, sports cars in general have lost popularity significantly. And so it's actually the crossovers in the SUVs where people are spending inordinate amounts of money. And I didn't realize that until recently. So it's only been until recently that then I've been looking and I'm like, oh, okay. That Mercedes is a, you know, an $80,000 car, brand new or whatever. So now every time that I go out, I'm like, okay, how many Lexuses do we see while we're out? And then it starts, like, I always knew that I lived in a fairly nice area. Like, there's a good mix here. There's starter homes, but there are, subdivisions that are extremely wealthy. I'll probably see 4 to 5 Lexuses every time I go out. But it's also the trucks. People spend insane amounts on trucks right now. Insane amounts. On trucks that I don't really think that they ever use. My dad has a truck, and I think that we've made pretty good use of that. I think that we probably do something with that truck weekly. But some people, I don't think that they ever use it. I don't think so. I do think. Okay, you know what? I've been yapping for so long. I haven't had the chance to come over here to Twitter and really drive down and see if there was anything that I missed. It's a Monday, so I wouldn't expect there to be a whole lot. Bob Iacino and Mr. Aurelio, Jim, are all on about the bloodbath hoax. I don't know if you know what? I find it interesting how... Can we talk about this for a second? Actually, let's talk about it. Over the weekend, Donald Trump said something about the electric vehicle industry, and that if he wasn't elected, that it would be a bloodbath in the electric vehicle industry. And the media has basically chopped that soundbite up and taken it out of context to imply that, like, Donald Trump is threatening a bloodbath if he loses or something like that. And it's been everywhere. So, question. How much of this is the media really going full ham, doubling down on Joe Biden, versus the media just using sensationalism to try and get clicks? What do you think? Because my thinking is, I don't think that the media really wants Joe Biden again. So, like, I don't think that they would necessarily pick sides per se, as much as just try and drive the most hyperbole and hysteria out there that drives as many clicks to their websites as possible. Except for that, like, when you see something that is that crazily taken out of context, doesn't that just hurt trust in the media and cause people to visit those websites even less? That's what I think is going on, and yet I continue to see this nonsense. Maybe? I don't know. Uzi said, I saw that. It wasn't like the triggering issue. I think that if this had happened during the week, and like everybody online would have been arguing about it, and we would probably be a little bit more triggered about it. Right? Well, I'm still scrolling here, but there actually has been a decent amount of activity on Twitter, but like they're just not saying anything interesting to me. I'm kind of used to that stuff. It's not triggering. Yeah, influence ops aren't as triggering. You know what? It pisses me off. It pisses me off that social media is so manipulated, and that the average people don't realize the extent to which it is. There was this thread on Reddit on Change My View where this guy was saying that late stage capitalism subreddit was like a foreign influence op, and nobody in the thread really, I felt, argued like the core issue. They were all talking about Russians. If it's a foreign influence op, it's a Chinese op, not a Russian one. Average people poo-poo the influence social media has too, and then they freak out when their teenagers suddenly want to slice. Oh yeah, totally. Well, yeah, teenagers have there's always something with teenagers, right? In the 70s, it was, become a hippie and do lots of drugs. And then it turned into anorexia. And then it was like being emo. And like the thing is that like in retrospect, because I remember a time when it was like, you got to be really concerned if your child becomes emo and all of this sort of stuff. Pretty mild compared to some of the things that you see teenagers doing now, don't you think? They understand nothing about what being terminally on. They don't. Well, I mean, I think I have some idea. I think I, in particular, am like, or was like, the most terminally online person ever. I've been there from the very beginning. I think you'd be very hard pressed. I bet you that in terms of like, combination of duration and amount of investment, I guess, personal time and energy into social media, I'm probably like in the top 1% of social media users from that respect. I'm not saying from amount of popularity and things like that. I've never really gone too far with it. YouTube having a YouTube channel with almost 14,000 subscribers is amazing. Never had anything even remotely close to that kind of level of success with anything else. But I've been online terminally, and I am aware of ways in which it affects you. Like when you start doom scrolling, man, like you're not even really into what you're reading or what you're watching anymore, but you keep scrolling on TikTok, or, it's bedtime and you're still scrolling on TikTok instead of going to sleep, right? Like it messes with your dopamine levels. And so what happens is like you have these clefts in between each of your individual nerve cells, and there are neurochemicals in that cleft. And the amount of neurochemical in that cleft determines whether or not a signal gets passed from that cell. So if you have high levels of dopamine, norepinephrine, serotonin, GABA, etc. in that cleft, the brain cell is more likely to carry the signal. And if it doesn't, then the part of the brain that was generating that signal may need to reprocess it and send it again more strongly, right? And this is essentially what causes ADHD, is right. The frontal part of the brain, it's like sending the signal, but like it's not getting there fast enough because it's not getting perpetuated through. So by the time the ADHD person has that like mind's eye image of like, this is the thing that happened last time, so, and that didn't go very well, so maybe I shouldn't do this, it comes late, right? And that's basically the underlying cause of ADHD, okay? Well, there's an interesting thing about this, which is that your brain adjusts to the amount of neurochemicals that you have. So if you start taking a medication like a norepinephrine reuptake inhibitor or a serotonin reuptake inhibitor, okay, these antidepressant style medications, they usually will have you titrate onto them. You won't take the full dose right away, because like norepinephrine reuptake inhibitor, which you would use for ADHD, it makes you incredibly nauseous at first. Like think about, have you ever had like a life and death situation, or just a situation that was really intense and you were extremely focused? That's like the norepinephrine going, because it's a precursor to epinephrine or adrenaline. Okay. So like a really adrenaline fueled moment, and then afterwards you feel nauseous and you want to puke, right? That's the way that a norepinephrine reuptake inhibitor makes you feel, right? But after you've been on it for a little while, your body adjusts to those new levels, right? So what's happening is you're on TikTok and you've got this device that is basically using machine learning to maximize the amount of dopamine that you generate from viewing this app, right? So you're your dopamine levels are constantly elevated, that means that you need more dopamine in that cleft for the signals to get through because of the way that your brain has adjusted to it, right? So essentially, if you are on social media too much, and especially if you're like a teenager, essentially, being on the app can cause ADHD or ADHD-like symptoms. And some people might be prone to different. So I saw this thing the other day from All In podcast, which I don't watch, but I get lots, I get them on TikTok all the time. And Chamath was saying that his child was being diagnosed with ADHD, and instead of giving him medications, they just took away his iPad, and then he was fine. Probably. I totally believe it. It seems that being on the apps can cause ADHD-like symptoms. Okay, so like, I can, I can tell when that's happening to me because I've been on it for so long, and because I have ADHD, so like I kind of know what it feels like and what to look for and stuff, right? That's what it does to the kids. And then especially, the other thing that can happen is you can get caught in these like anxiety loops where like you really want to get a certain amount of likes, and you want all these people to like you. So like maybe there was a girl that you really liked, and you're doing stuff on Facebook or whatever and hoping that they like it. And so it's after you post it, the whole time you're sitting there waiting and hoping that the girl that you like sees the post and gives it a like, for instance, right? Like that's the thing. And people get addicted to like the anxiety of that. It's, you get butterflies in your stomach. You want to kind of lie around. It's anxiety. Some people confuse it with being in love, right? But then that can take an even more destructive form where you start to feel like that for like every little post, like the adoration of your audience and things like that, right? And when you do that with kids in school, and it comes down to like they're in school, and like how your social media post does affects your standing in the social hierarchy at school, can cause real issues with the kids. So yes. For me, I've been on it. I understand it better than most. I've kind of gotten to the point where I don't spend as much time. I've got other things. I think that I would spend even less time on social media, but like sometimes I have to watch the kids, and so I have to have something to occupy my mind a little bit. But yeah, that's I think that most people, if they had the amount of social media exposure that I've had, it would probably ruin them. I'm kind of a weird guy. I like to get on the internet and argue. I'm extremely technical. I'm freaking running a live stream and using a modal text editor and a little bit. Most people can't handle that. Most people can't handle being subjected to the constant psyops from social media and the Democrat Party and Republican Party trying to influence people and stuff. Because if you're not deep enough into it to understand what's going on and know when you're being manipulated like that, they drive you crazy very quickly. I can see it and I think one thing is some people think that this is like this is like a suburban problem. Like, oh, those rich white liberals that are addicted to online, they have that problem. But like conservatives, they're not so much. But like you go and you see these polls that are like, what is the probability of there being a civil war, yada, 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 yada. That the number of people that believe there's going to be a civil war, that to me is indicative of the destructive power that social media has had on our country, because there's almost no chance that we would have like a real civil war If anything, we're already in a civil war, and it's a lawfare and social media war. But like actual ballistic war, yeah, probably not. Probably not. I'd consider the odds to be negative. Oh, okay. What reminds me of those guys over at Sierra Charts that are like, well, we're not going to bother adding support for this Eurex feature because there's going to be ballistic warfare. Just crazy. Only one side would be willing to act. Violent. Well, I don't even know about violent revolution, man. I think that if Donald Trump is elected, that there will probably be a decent amount of rioting. Just like there kind of was while he was elected, you know? But nothing too much crazier than what we've already seen. And I don't see, would progressives, this is the other thing, is like, this one is kind of funny to think about, but like, you know, leftists are all going after Donald Trump because he participated in an insurrection, which I don't think is accurate to the law. But, you know, they're all concerned that Donald Trump would, you know, like if Donald Trump loses, for instance, that he would try and foment a revolution or something like that. But I think that the left is far more likely to try and start a revolution and overthrow the government than the right is. Because the right still believes in the Constitution ultimately. And so it's pretty hard to get the right to collectively come up and rebel against the government, right? And if they did rebel, it would just be replacing people, but they would still want to keep the Constitution. Whereas if the left rebelled, they would probably overthrow the Constitution and replace it, right? Nah, Trump will just retreat into his commentary on dopey social media site that nobody's on. Yeah, probably. You're right. Yeah. Yeah, I think progressives can be pushed far enough, conservatives can't. They'll go extinct quietly. I've definitely seen comments from people on Reddit and otherwise that kind of suggests to me that their plan, if Donald Trump was elected, would be to like revolt. I don't think that'll actually happen like that, but just the fact that we think it's so close when the probability is actually extremely low. That's the result. That is a illusion. What would we call it? A delusion created by social media. Mirage. It's not real. It's not the reality on the ground. Hey Paul, it's horrible for the children designed to be addictive, easy to find online, but of course many people won't care because they get a few seconds away from their kid. Oh, Paul, I really wish that was the case. But so I see this kind of a comment on Reddit, especially a lot, where people basically try and say like all of these problems that we're having with the kids are a fault of their parents. And to that, I would say this. How widespread does an issue need to be before it becomes a societal problem? Because I kind of think that if it's a problem that like every parent deals with, that maybe it's not just the parents. And I think that is the reality. The reality is that the world that we live in, like having a social media account is a pretty big part of being in this society and being like in high school. And I'm not saying that you can't survive without it, okay, but like pretty much everybody's going to have one. And so the issue is that it's like a camel in a tent, right? First, the camel, he just sticks his nose in. And if you say, well, okay, you know, he doesn't want to breathe in the desert dust, so we'll just let him have his nose in the tent. And then before long, you're outside and the camel is inside the tent. And that's what happens with social media, is like once the door is open, once Pandora's box has been opened, it's kind of hard to close it. The tools that you have to monitor and limit your children's social media activity are extremely limited. Once the kids get to like age 12, if they are motivated enough, they can get around basically anything that you put on there. And that's even if you have high technical expertise and you're using solid tools. The companies like Apple, for instance, they will add features to the phones to help parents, but they're like an afterthought, and they're just not very effective. So, in my opinion, we need to there maybe needs to be some action on this. I think, for instance, you see this whole thing about with Texas that they also implemented this thing where, well, like we did it here in Utah, and other conservative states are starting to do it too, where porn websites online have to verify the age of their users. I don't know if that's going to be like too effective, but I do think that it's becoming like a big enough of a public concern for them to start doing things like that. Not that law is necessarily going to be very effective. I kind of wonder if we're going to get to the point where like all of the conservative states have implemented that rule. Because Pornhub's what is their strategy? Pornhub's strategy has been, instead of verifying the age of the users, to just show people in those states a message to get them to rail against that state and have them change it. And you know what? I don't think it's working. I think that they implemented it here in Utah and like nobody really cares. Like everybody on the internet got like super triggered about it at first, but I haven't heard anybody discuss it since then. Like nobody's who's really gonna stand up and fight over that sort of thing, because all you're doing is just admitting that you're a perv, right? So it's kind of a law that people don't fight against, and so it kind of happened and everybody got used to it. And nobody talks about it, and it's spreading to more states, and I think that it will take hold in more states. So will we get to the point where Pornhub is basically blocked in all conservative states but open in all liberal states? Kind of seems to me like that's the way it's going to go, and I don't know how. I wonder if there is not a point at which Pornhub is losing more money from it that they changed their approach. I don't know. But the whole thing is kind of curious to watch play out, that it's spreading. And like this is just one of those examples where it's like, yeah, I kind of think that kids accessing porn is a problem that should be dealt with. I was actually specifically targeting Coco Melon. That's funny. Oh, well, okay. So let me tell you something, Apal. If your kids, because I do let my kids on the iPad, I get mad at my wife constantly for like, why did you give them the iPad? I call it crack. I'm like, why is Ethan over here sniffing cocaine? Why'd you give him this, right? But they will not freaking leave her alone. But one is 2 and the other is 4, and so the 2-year-old is in that age where he's super clingy anyways, right? And then the 4-year-old is like semi-autistic, so he is just like wild and crazy. You have to watch him constantly, but then they don't want to just hang out and play with me in the living room. They have to be over by mom when she's cooking. So that's when the designated iPad time is. It's like that 1 hour around dinner time, and then they eat, and then after that, I don't want them to have the iPads, right? So they do use it. And what are they watching? Well, they do watch Coco Melon, but some of the crazy stuff, some of the stuff that they watch is just weird. It's just weird stuff. Especially if they get into shorts. Ugh. So right now, Ethan is obsessed with a Marshmello music video. So it's like a music video, and he's like holding balloons or something like that, and flying around holding a thing of balloons. And he just watches it over and over and over. And I don't know what it is about this video that he likes, but he just keeps watching it. Uzi says, I couldn't imagine things like porn and abortion being driving issues for the way that I vote. I don't think that they are for very many people anymore. Abortion obviously was, but from the polling that I've seen, the abortion issue has kind of died off. Like, Republicans had a huge deficit among female voters, and that deficit has kind of been bridged recently. So it's more equal again. This is part of why Joe Biden is doing so terribly in the polling.
Block sell.
Can we trade it? Yeah, well, you know, I think if I was going to trade the weaponization of children viewing stuff online and being online, it would have been Roblox. But that stock has gone south, and I would say that what they were doing over there at Roblox was tantamount to child labor, and I'm glad that it's not doing very well. That was a strong downtick. I noticed that as well, Octavius. And I'm hearing a lot of clicks, and there was an increase in activity across the board when that happened. So I don't know why all of the markets all of a sudden decided to kind of shift there, but I'm kind of wondering if the treasuries reverse this kind of pullback that they've had and start turning back down towards the lows again. I don't feel confident in taking it. I do think it's a Federal Reserve week that we should be seeing some behavior out there. I'd say this is pretty typical Monday. We might get more activity tomorrow. I'm not quite sure how they'll trade it this time, though, because like past few Fed meetings, we've been like, well, you know, the market is being too dovish, and Jerome Powell is almost certainly going to come and destroy their hopes and stuff, right? And then he'll come out and he'll do that, but like apparently not strongly enough, and then the market rallies or whatever the deal is, right? So I've kind of given up on that one, that this is going to be the meeting where Powell is going to disappoint them and they stop, you know, reduce their interest rate cut expectations, right? So that strong tick may just be noise. May just be noise. But let's see. Yeah, I think I'm going back to like the driving issues with the way that people vote. It kind of feels to me like the driving issue for how people vote right now is Joe Biden. Really. Like, this election is turning into a referendum on Joe Biden. Because there's no longer these like nuanced issues where, you know, somebody might have a reasonable argument on both sides and it's down to temperament which side of that issue you fall down on, and that sort of a thing. It's just not that anymore. Like, it has basically become, there's the woke left and everybody that opposes the woke left. And if you are in on the woke left, like, you are all in, and if you're opposed to it, You are all in on being opposed to it. And the room in the middle, there isn't a whole lot of room in the middle, because what are the issues that would be talked about where you're in the middle? There are none. You can't pass anything in Congress anyways. So like how do your voting going to change policy anyways? Other than who's president, because president uses executive orders, essentially, right? And I think that may be a factor in why, like, for instance, people are not listing abortion as much now as a reason for why they're going to vote a certain way. Right? Maybe that will change after Trump again, but... I feel like the issues that drive me are still the same as ever. But the way that the politics have gone is just, like, not what I would have expected at all. Like, the people that I find are like, you know, most concerned about freedom of speech issues, for instance, are people that I would never have expected to be allies, for instance. Like, you basically, like, allies with Bill Maher. Oh, I can remember, like, in the post-Iraq War days, or the beginning of the Iraq War. Oh, man, I hated that guy so much. Hated that guy so much. And now, like, I watch clips from his show, and I'm like, hey, they're making a good point there. This is actually reasonable. Yeah, it's like, come on. It's crazy. It's crazy the way that this has gone. People supporting and not supporting things that I think that they've been, like, brainwashed, and it's not because that's their natural inclination. You know? Is that basically what it all comes down to? I don't feel like that the electorate is in its right mind as of late. But I guess that's kind of like the point of demoralization, right? Because it gets to the point where it's so complicated and so polarizing that you don't feel like you can do or accomplish anything. But I feel like we never resolved the original discussion point, which was that there are some things to do with the city planning and so forth. The left basically doesn't want you to have vehicle freedom. I don't think that they're going to be very successful with those efforts, though. Maybe, like, I think that people will drive less, primarily because more people will work from home, and you're going to have less people that are like, you know, you live in the suburb and you drive into the city every day. I think that is becoming less of a thing. But people will still want to have a car and to be able to drive around. Yeah. This future that some people on the left want, that's like, you know, you don't even own a car and you just ride public transportation. I don't think that that's ever going to become the norm in the United States. And I understand why they want it, but I don't think that the systems and the incentives and so forth are really going to push in that direction. And you can see it happening because they pushed electric vehicles as hard as possible, and people still want their gas vehicles. That was the point of that. And then I started being ADHD and dragging myself into all sorts of other political discussions. What I should be doing today is I should be ranting about how easy the financial conditions are right now, right? Like, it's really wild to me that we had basically the fastest rise in interest rates in history, all the way up to 4%, 5%, and financial conditions are easier than they were before they started raising rates. Like, what? That's so crazy to me. The market is convinced that the fix is in, that they're going to keep the economy running hot for the election year, and that the U.S. is going to debase its currency. That's why the treasuries haven't sold a whole lot, but the gold has bought up a ton. Right? They're hedging themselves against that with gold. I think that's what's going on. This March interest rate meeting would be kind of like the perfect opportunity, because this was when people thought that we would have the first rate increase, but they, since then they've kind of realized that that's not going to happen. So now is the time where they kind of get to set the future expectation, or at least confirm the future expectation. Is it going to be in June? If there was any point to try and smack that down, I think it would be now, but I don't think he's going to do it. What would he say? I don't think that he would say something as strong as, I think it's highly unlikely that we will cut rates in June. I don't think he'll say that. And that's what I think you would need to scare this market. Yeah. So here, it's been 90 minutes. Let's come over here. So I'm browsing around now, see what other kind of things we got going on. I think those are going to be the three kind of things that we find ourselves talking about, or that are going to be talked about online this week, is electric, the car world, Federal Reserve policy. Let's see here. Boeing is too big to fail, so buy it while it's down. I think that one is correct. But the problem is, how long will it take it to get back up? And how far will it actually go when it gets back up? Because it could just be a stock that, like the company's not going to go down, but the stock could just go sideways for a long time. I don't think it's a very good place for your money right now. Yep, sorry, and the bloodbath hoax. It'll be electric vehicles and the bloodbath hoax, and then the Federal Reserve meeting this week. That's what we got. Nah, I'd say it's still pretty quiet out there. They have ticked down another tick, but I'm gonna recenter things right there. Let's see here. Eric Wallerstein, Japan likely set for the largest wage increase since 1991, around when the Japanese bubble burst. After spring wage negotiations, the Bank of Japan could end yield curve control plus raise interest rates tomorrow. Bitcoin not doing so well the beginning of this session. In S&P 500, I'd say it's pretty lackluster action. A little bit of an up move, coming right back to it. We'll see if they're going to do something significant or not. We do have what's here at the top of the hour, NAHB Housing Market Index. We might see a slight reaction to that in the treasuries because we don't have a whole lot. And you know, I didn't have that on here, so let's put that on here. Tick. Let's see here. So the housing market index came in at 51 versus an expected 48. That would maybe put a little bit of pressure on the treasuries, but so far it's just ticked down and they haven't busted down through this 30. So heavy selling in the twos. I want to think that there's some flattening coming through, but it's too subtle for me to really stick my neck out on, you know? the flows in the 10-year are also too confusing at the moment. So this does not look to me like a market that really has very much large player activity in it. You might see more tomorrow. Sometimes on Tuesdays, it's like they all of a sudden they seem to know what's going to happen and they make these big moves before the meeting. We're stuck in the mud. Yeah. We really are. Like, there was a shift there to the downside, but that's where I was like, again, like, I don't know if there was actually, you know, like a shift like that makes me think, hey, there's a big player involved, like something's going to happen. We might want to pay attention here, right? But when that happens, just kind of like out of nowhere, and I don't see any real reason for it to be happening, then I think that sort of thing becomes like, we are stuck in the mud. We're not getting a whole lot of trade. And so the market makers start to do crazy things to try and entice people in. Like I view it as a trap. And I think that's what we're seeing here is we had a little bit of a trap. It kind of pulled a few people in only to find out that we're stuck. And that's the advantage of knowing what drives flows, you know. Of course, there's always a possibility that there is a strong flow out there that we're just not aware of, but I think that this situation in particular is very unlikely to see a lot of that. You know, eventually they are going to pop out of this 30 to 31 area, and I'm interested to see which way it is. If they pop down and go to the lows, that could be really interesting, right? Let's see, if I want to buy some bonds, say 9 months duration, would I be better off buying them today or waiting for the meeting? It's a good question. I don't think that in this situation that I could really make a call like that. holding them or like buying them after the meeting carries a lot of risk, right? There's probably going to be a decent amount of volatility baked in. We could see bonds higher or lower after the meeting. I don't think that I can make a very good guess on to which side is more likely or to which side will move more. So if I was just trying to reduce my risk overall, I would probably just be buying it today. Right? Because otherwise you're taking on risk. You know, the risk that the bonds move significantly higher after the FOMC in exchange for the chance that they move significantly lower. If you're just trying to reduce the risk altogether, you just say, well, you know, if I'm okay with today's price, then I just take today's price. If I'm happy with the rates offered today, then you take it. Yeah. Especially for like a 9 month. Yeah. Now, the split side of that is that if you're trading 9 months, right, there's a those have a lot of duration involved with them because smaller rates overall. So, you know, the meeting could substantially affect the short-term value of your holdings. Right. If you hold it to you know, all the way, it should be fine. You should get what you expect. But I'm just warning you that, you know, it might be a little bit rocky. But you're not some bank where the unrealized losses is a huge deal to you, right? So it's probably not a factor. Just parking cash, yeah. But I the other question though is like, if you're gonna park it for 9 months, why aren't you doing like a CD or something like that? So the CD's just not giving you good prices. Haven't looked at them lately. Don't want the variability of money market. I could, you're right. Well, yeah, but if they're like only offering you 3% and you can get 5% with treasuries, then it's a different thing, right? But a CD would be less complicated, right? Because if you're going to do it in bonds, you have to have your own account and you have to go and get them at auction. And well, maybe you don't have to get them at auction, but that's the best way to do it. And then for the average consumer, the CD is just a lot simpler. Really? Berkshire is rolling 130 billion into 3-month treasuries at, I believe, 4.8%, which is, well, yeah. Well, they just don't see, they think that everything is overvalued. So there's a fundamental issue with Berkshire Hathaway's investing philosophy, essentially, right? Like, I think that the general approach is a good approach, but they don't understand. Well, maybe they understand. They ignore the fact that prices are ultimately, and especially in the short term, just a reflection of current liquidity conditions and people buying and selling. And so if a lot of people want a stock, it's going to go up regardless of whether or not it actually should, right? And in an environment where, you know, in the current environment, essentially what drives the most volume and stuff is things like stock buybacks and using free money and all of that sort of a thing. Those end up being more impactful, and those are pushing the markets up. And so if you don't want to participate in that, you're basically left on the sidelines. And you could be left on the sidelines for a really long time. So, I think that if we continue to be in this kind of an environment, Berkshire Hathaway is going to have to make some adjustments to the way that they do things to remain competitive. I'm totally okay with having my money in them for now, though. What are your thoughts on Vanguard low fee funds? So I can't speak to any individual funds, but basically when you're looking at your 401k, you want to find a large cap S&P 500 tracking index fund, and you want to find a bond market tracking fund, and you're looking for the ones with the lowest fees. Now, this does have a substantial impact on the markets, and one that I don't think is an entirely positive, and I don't think that we can continue on this trajectory of index funds just becoming more and more important. Eventually that kind of blows up in your face. But when that would happen, I don't know. I don't think we're anywhere close. Would also be nice if they pay out dividends. In this, it's funny because in this market, the kind of company that puts a dividend out is not necessarily the kind of company you want to own, right? Like companies putting out a nice fat dividend are the companies that the market has not liked, and they're putting that dividend out there to attract people. Because the companies that are doing really, really well, they don't do dividends, they buy back stock instead. I'm kind of the mind still that maybe companies shouldn't be allowed to buy their own stock, or that there should be more significant restrictions on that. So I just see too much, you get too far away from the fundamental situation. Eventually that blows up in your face, right? Only the companies I own should be allowed to should be allowed to buy back stocks. So there you go. Oh, as long as they don't have a bad payout ratio, they're chilling. But like, for instance, like AT&T, they have a pretty high dividend. So it's like all of those telecom companies that are kind of screwed, they're paying dividends. There's like, I'm totally down with companies that like pay large dividends and stuff like that. It's just that you go out and look at what are the best like dividend paying companies right now, and I think you'll find that they aren't the best performing assets. Yeah, REITs, well, I don't know if I really would want to be super exposed to the real estate market right now. Remember when I had Zillow because I thought, oh, it's down hard, and eventually I think that website will recover and they should be able to make money because they still have a very important website. But like, it just keeps going down, right? Oh, that's daily. We need to go to like a day chart. Yeah. On Friday, they just got destroyed because of this ruling about the finder's fees. I don't remember all of the details. This is something to do with that. Like, you used to have to pay your buyer's agent commission and things like that, and they're suing over that. And there was a ruling that was not very favorable for Zillow on that. And so they're not like at their lows, but they're pretty close. I got out somewhere around 60, I think. Right? Like, the real estate market's not going to do well. So I think that if you want, so on my board, and I'm not giving a recommendation here, I'm just trying to show you what I'm doing. Hold on. Okay. So if I'm going to get into real estate right now, I'm more interested in real estate that caters specifically to like old folks' homes. So the two companies that I have on that is ENSG, Ensign Group, and Well, WELL, Well Tower Incorporated. And you can see that their total return this past year is up in the 30 to 40%. And this one on a 5-year, and ENSG is 164%. So that's not bad, right? I think that that's kind of the place. And I definitely wouldn't want to be in commercial real estate right now, right? There will be a point at which, housing prices will continue to move up and so forth. Just, it might be a while. We have to see. It might require a recession in order for the real estate market to get back into like a normal place where it would make sense to really put a ton of money into it. But I'm always too stingy, right? I'm always too stingy. We did tick 29.5 there, so there is a small breakout. I'd say they're still pretty nonchalant about it, though. I am starting to see a little bit of autocorrelation turning short, though, across the complex. I know I'm being quiet, but you know, it's a Monday and we're going to be talking a lot on Wednesday, right? So now is a good time to just kind of look around and see what we got going on. And they did tick out of the range just briefly, but look, they're like sitting right back on it. Oh wow, here's an interesting thread. Let me read it for you. My wife and I are proud elder millennials, both 40. Neither of us came from money, and for the last 20 years of marriage, we never had a lot. I was in the military and just retired a little over a year ago. I had 4+ years of ground combat deployments in Iraq and Afghanistan and got pretty messed up over the years. Fortunately, I punched my golden ticket and came out with retirement and a VA disability that is close to $100K a year. Wow. Does that really happen? That you get a retirement that's $100K? My kid's college is taken care of because of veteran benefits in my state. It sounds like a good deal so far. I got a high-paying job right after retirement, and we have been enjoying life, but aggressively saving. We own a home as a rental property out of state, but currently rent ourselves as any house in our high cost of living area would want. Comes with an 8 to 9K mortgage. Oh, wow, a month. That is pretty crazy. With rents on similar properties being roughly half that. Wife wants the more idyllic suburb life, and while I can appreciate its charms, I have no desire to do that for a second longer than is necessary to ensure my kids go to a good, safe school. After that, I want some land with a modest home and a camper van. This is attainable for us at 48 years of age. I'm with you. I'm with you so far, buddy. You know, the whole like modest home and a camper van or something. Okay. This is not at all on her bingo card. She wants the house in the suburbs that can't see the neighbors, nice cars, and I guess something along the lines of hosting a legendary Christmas party that the who's who's of the neighborhood attends. Ah. Yes. I generate 5/6 of our income, and the burden would be on me to continue to perform at that work to fund the lifestyle and pay the bills. I generally like my job and get paid handsomely, but I would quit in a second if I didn't have family and profound effed up economy to consider. My plan is to work hard while the kids are still around, get as close to zero debt as possible, and then become the man of leisure I aspire to be. Drive my camper van around to see the national parks, visit friends and family, drop whatever hobby I'm experimenting with to help my kids out, and generally be chill hard AF. With all of this, with my wife as a co-conspirator, what she wants to keep me in the churn for another 20 years. She doesn't see why that's a big deal, and when I say I don't want to live to work, she discounts me as being eccentric. I do not think she understands how fortunate we are and what drives me insane. That drives me insane. How do I better explain that we've been granted freedom from tyranny? Okay, so you're both wrong. You're both wrong, my friend. I like this guy, though. I really like this. What's his name? High Speed Haiku. Hey, oh, that's an interesting name. High Speed Haiku, you're both wrong. Your wife should not spend as much money, and you should keep working. So, if you're pulling in 100K a year, and then you have a day job on top of that, save that effing money. Every penny of it. And because come on, seriously, $100,000 a year, you know, just that alone, you save that for 10 years and you have $1 million in the bank, and you're still getting the pension, so you'll still get the 100, you know, and it will probably go up over time too, right? So like then you will really actually truly be free, right? You get like 2 or 3 million saved up, and now you're really free. And the things that your wife wants, those are traps. Yeah, those are traps. Those are things that are gonna, especially if you haven't actually paid all your debts off. If you still have debts, then you're really not in the position to go and get the super nice suburb house and all of that sort of a thing. Now that said, $8,000 to $9,000. I would hope that you're making like 200, to be living in an area like that, you're making like $200,000 a year or something.
Sell.
I think that's probably what I would have to make to be able to pay, that much a month in mortgage. That's insane. Oh my gosh, that's like thinking about that. That's insane. Yeah. Maybe you should move to a cheaper place though. Right? Man. Let's see what the people on Reddit do. Strip off all the details about the van versus dinner parties, and the issue is your wife wants community and you don't. Well, this person might be right. You are trying to get as far away from people as you can and only see a select few people and only on your terms. That's a big issue. You need to work that out with your wife because it seems like you two have not been clear with one another about what you want out of life and making sure that the goals you're working towards are common goals. Yeah, I'd be worried about this guy, though, that if he was like retired. Or I mean, like, if he wasn't working, what is he gonna do at this time? Because that sounds like the kind of person that, like, your whole dream is to be quote unquote free, so you can do whatever you want with your free time, and then once you get it, like, it's not what it's cracked up to be, and you don't last very long. I've definitely known people that they retired, and then, like, as soon as they retired, that just downhill very quickly. I don't know, but they might be right that this guy may not understand, like, maybe she just wants the community. I don't know, though, because just because you live in a suburb doesn't mean that you got community, right? Yeah, still no trades. It's getting still. Well, the thing is that the market has been pretty. We're not in low volatility, but we're moving back into low volatility in the treasuries. It has definitely been tighter than it has been like the whole last 4 years. And then on top of that, we have an FOMC meeting on Wednesday and not a whole lot to go off of here on this Monday. Sometimes you will see crazy flows before the FOMC meeting, but I'm not so sure we're going to see that this time. If we do, maybe tomorrow. But today, they're not really getting that. And so, yeah, not really a whole lot of a reason to take a trade. Okay, now we're back to the lows. That's, Oh, we've already ticked into that a couple times, so curious. Well, I don't really see anything like too crazy until 26. So let's just kind of see what happens. There does look like there's a little bit of weight on them here. The correlations and the flow and everything still is pretty lackluster though, so. Sim Sam, hi Seth. Hey, it's seems like a familiar name. It's been a while though. How are you? Well, it's been a pretty boring day. I haven't been yapping too much. We had a lot of yapping at the beginning of this stream, but this market is pretty quiet. We got a Federal Reserve meeting on Wednesday. Will be more exciting then. It's actually almost time to end, which is crazy. It's gone by so quickly. See, you have the tick multiplier on. Did you try to trade it? No, I haven't tried taking any trades today. I do have tick multiplier on ES though. I find it's a lot easier to understand what's going on over there with having that. Although there's a lot of noise in ES, so sometimes there's nothing to understand other than that it's noisy. Somehow I make money with the tick multiplier? What do you mean by that? I don't know. I don't know what you mean. All right. Well, you know what? I don't have it. I was thinking about that thread and I was typing something up, but I don't have much more to say about today. I think today is just kind of a throw. I'm going to need to work on, because if we're going to get slow days like this, I'm going to have to, well, we can probably fill our time with studying more individual stocks, huh? That's probably what I should be doing. All right, guys, but tomorrow's another day, and Wednesday is going to be the big day. So really, we're just waiting until Wednesday. Till then, stay excellent, team.